Okay, welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame, where tonight the Jazz played in Philadelphia against the 76ers. And again, a really shortened lineup, different starters yet again, and all the veteran players sat. So let's talk about it once again.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So once again, all the regular guys and Walker Kessler sat the bench tonight in street clothes, and it was a really, really, really young lineup and a shortened bench. And I'd say, again, it's interesting to watch these guys develop, and we know we're unlikely to win the game with these types of lineups. Had Walker played in this game, I think the Jazz probably win. But Walker sat because the Jazz knew that they couldn't play Walker. He's too good. That would give them too good of a chance to win this game. And they're obviously, at this point, this is a trend. They're trying to lose the games. There's no doubt about that. They don't want to win. They want development and losses. So overall, I was still entertained. Yeah, would I like a few things to be different? Do I think that one particular guy shoots way too many shots? Yeah, I do think that. But overall, I'm still happy with the way this played out. I was entertained. I liked the way Filipowski started the game. There were some other really bright spots. So overall, it's a net positive for tonight because they got the loss and we saw development. And I'm happy with the way things stand.
I agree with that. I told you earlier, I thought that the Jazz were going to lose this game or we're going to win this game because Philadelphia is going to lose their draft pick unless they're the bottom six. So they have a motivation to go as high as possible so they can slip if somebody jumps them. So I think they're going to be doing everything they can to get up to the fifth worst record in the league. So I was surprised, but honestly, our young guys continue to play well, for the most part. Yeah, there's flaws. Of course there is. They're young players, but I think we're really pleased with this, and we continue to see some signs out of a few players that are just amazing. And so why don't we get into those?
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the box score. And Brice tonight, he went 5 for 12 from the field, and he didn't get off to a particularly great start. But then he came on strong, and he made some really nice shots, and those were some difficult shots. And that's one of the reasons why the Jazz actually got back into the game. I mean, they were just getting crushed in the second half. They were just absolutely getting blown away, and the really odd thing about that is the Jazz got off to a really hot start. I mean, they were by 16 in that first quarter. I mean, they were just cruising along, and then they made the Jazz made some substitutions, and things went south in a hurry. I mean, the flow, it just died, and things turned around. And we'll see that in some of the plus minus numbers that are here. But overall, I thought Brice played pretty good tonight. I mean, his defense was not good, but offensively, I thought that he was a plus player, obviously. Like we've always said, the plus-minus stuff is kind of nonsensical. But while Brice was on the floor tonight, it was a positive, and he made some good shots. And so I was happy to see Brice play well on the road especially.
I was too, and I think the thing I would point out with Brice is 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And last year he showed that he's a decent passer. We didn't know that coming out of Ohio State. He just hasn't had a lot this year. And those are the concerning signs for me, is it seems as if the only thing he can do is shoot. And I know that's not the case with him. His defense was very lackluster, and that continues to be the case. I honestly don't know how to change that. With defense, it's a lot of effort, it's skill, etc. But honestly, if you don't hold the rest of the players accountable on defense, it's really hard to make Brice accountable. And that's the challenge right now with the Jazz, is if you go to the Houston Rockets, their coach makes their players accountable, or they sit. look at Reed Shepherd. He spent most of his, the year in the G League, but the Jazz, that's not the case. And so we need that out of Brice because I think he's got skills. I mean, some of those shots he hits, man, I mean, and the funny thing is when he hits a three-pointer, it just hits the bottom of the net. I mean, you just hear the net rip. I mean, it is fun to watch. You and I have both played with some of those players that their shot's so pure, man, they hit the bottom of the net. And that's the case with Brice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was one play in that first half where Brice was driving the lane and he was going to have a very difficult time getting the shot off, and he went up and then at the last second he pitched it to Juzang on the wing, and Juzang made the three. And I'm so happy that Brice made that pass rather than forcing his own shot. So I thought at the time, wow, that's a really nice play by Brice because he actually made the correct play and he didn't try and force his own look. He got the ball, he pitched the ball to his teammate, even though it was a difficult pass to make because he was already at the top of his jump and he was on his way back down by the time he made that pass. But still, I mean, that shows awareness, which is a really big positive, especially for Brice, considering he's had some struggles and a lot of ups and downs, playing time, shots, and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so the other guy, I mean, obviously this is KJ Martin he went back to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is one of the places he played. I mean, Philadelphia traded him to Detroit, and then Detroit traded him to the Jazz. That's how he ended up with being on the Jazz. So, in a sense, he was going back to the team that he was with. You know, he knows all these guys. So I'm sure that he wanted to play well back in Philadelphia. And I thought he played a decent game. I mean, he shot the ball. I mean, all of his shot attempts basically are coming around the rim. So he's going to have a high percentage if he just shoots those shots. But overall, like a good game because he rebounded the ball. He had some assists. He had a couple blocks. He shot 5 for 8 from the field, 3 for 3 from the free throw line. So he scores 14 points and has 7 rebounds. And he also played a lot of minutes. And that's one of the things with KJ Martin. You know, he hasn't played a lot so far in his career. He really has played sparingly, and this is really the first time that he's played major minutes back to back to back to back to back. And he started 8 out of the last 10 games for the Jazz, and that's obviously a big step forward for KJ just in his development, actually getting some playing time.
What do you think that KJ's top 2 skills are right now?
Defense and certainly I'd say defense and rebounding at his position. Okay. I don't think he's a power forward. I don't think he's a power forward. So, I mean, he played power forward.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what he measured out at. He's 6'6" listed, but again, we got to look at what he measured out at. I don't know if he went to the combine. But here's the thing: I was a little worried about with KJ, and I looked at it during the game, and I came to the same conclusion as you. So right now, 35 minutes, 7 rebounds. Click on KJ Martin and look what his average rebounds are. So this year, 21 minutes a game, average rebounds 3.1 in 21 minutes a game. So that means on a 35-minute, like if he got 35 minutes, he'd be like a 5 rebound guy on a 36-minute basis. It's not good, honestly. So with all these players, like I just commented about Brice, one of the things, because he's not an accomplished 3-point shooter, his toughness, but you figure like his hard nose, rebounding, scrappiness, and so far he hasn't really shown that on these stats. So that's a little concerning for me, although he did have 5.5 rebounds with Houston in 22-23 in 28 minutes a game, but that's 28 minutes a game. So that'll be interesting to watch, at least for me, going forward, because I was under the same assumption as you, is his real strengths is toughness, defense, and reboundings, and the rebounds are not stellar.
Yeah, I mean, on offense right now, he's just around the paint guy. I mean, he's obviously, I think he's really trying to develop his 3-point shooting from the wings, but he's not there yet. I mean, that's not, you can just tell in his release, that's not his bread and butter where he's going to be a plus player doing that. He's definitely not that yet. So he definitely does need to rebound, and that has to be part of his thing. But he isn't very big, and he's obviously not a power forward. That's yeah. They should have just listed in the box score forward, not power forward. It's kind of dumb, but anyway. So let's go on to Filipowski got off to a great start tonight. I mean, he had something like 15 or 16 in the first quarter, something like that. I mean, it was a lot. And obviously, I watched the Philadelphia feed on this, and their color guy is Ala Abdelnaby, who was a former Duke player, so he obviously knows about Kyle Filipowski. He's probably actually even played pickup ball with him. I assume that Ala is an older guy now, but still, I would assume that he still goes back to Duke and plays some pickup ball with these guys. So he's probably played with Kyle, so he knows Kyle well. So he had some complimentary things to say about Kyle. But Kyle got off a really nice start tonight, and overall, I think a positive game. He had foul trouble, but still, he's playing the center position, and that's totally out of position. Kyle Filipowski is not a center. I mean, maybe you can play him some spot minutes sometime. At some point in the future, it's center, even if the Jazz are really good. But right now, with his strength issues and everything else, he's really not a center. I don't think he's going to ever be a competent center. He's a power forward. And maybe he could even swing to small forward more so than swinging to center. So he's definitely not a center, and he got played out of position tonight. But I think he held his own. His guys got a lot of offensive rebounds. There's no doubt about that. But overall, he shot the ball well from three. He shot the ball well overall. He scored 25. He had 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. You know, it's hard to complain. He actually shot the ball reasonably well from the free throw line tonight, where this is something that Kyle has struggled with. So he went 5 for 7 tonight from free throw line. So that's improvement too. And I think like we previously said in a bunch of games, you know, the signs are positive with Kyle. He just needs to get stronger so he doesn't get pushed around so much.
Yeah, the only thing in his box score that bothered me tonight was his rebounds. You know, with 30 minutes, a big guy like that, you just want to see more rebounds than that. The more rebounds have been the trend with him. So this is just an anomaly tonight. He actually had 6, I think, in the first quarter. So it kind of really tapered off after that point in time. But he brought the ball up the court a couple of times, like weaving through traffic. I mean, just stuff that's just like he was coming down full speed and blew past somebody, juked him and blew past somebody. Some things you're just like, wow. Guy really is skilled. Like, I still have no idea how he dropped in the draft, and then I still have no idea that people that have seen him play and say, "Oh yeah, he was drafted the right position." Guys like Locke, where you just like, dude, are you watching the same skill set that I have? Because I don't see a lot of guys that are pure 6'11" without shoes and able to like run up the court, handle the ball, go around people, not lose it. And his outside shot, is really looking good. Now there's this anomaly, this misinformation that you presented out there that I think is where, they completely worked on his mechanics this year. Like, you don't change the mechanics and still be able to shoot. I think what they've done, and I don't know for sure, I think they worked on the speed of his shot, but the reality is hitting is him. It's not that Hardy came in and made him a good shooter. You don't learn to shoot in during the season. You learn to shoot over years and years and years of sitting in the gym. So I like his shot does look quicker than it did in the summer league. I think that was Hardy helping with him, the coaching staff, but his shooting is him. Let's be honest about it. This is not the coaches that should get credit for it. This is Kyle and what he's put into his career. Just like he's learned how to, his handles is something that he's learned, not the coaches have taught him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they did a lot of restructuring with this shot. I think they tweaked it a bit. I mean, you just can't restructure it. Like, you can't do that. I mean, and Kyle's mechanics coming in to the league weren't horrible. I mean,
good.
It was pretty good. You can look at it, just look at him at Duke. It's still pretty good. I mean, it's not really that there weren't a lot of major flaws that were obviously noticeable. So I don't think they did that at all. Juzang, I think overall Johnny's night was really mediocre. He didn't play particularly well, but it's nice to see Johnny get some minutes again at the starting position and get a lot of minutes. So, but still, the result was mediocre. He had 1 assist. He did rebound the ball well for his position, obviously. It's 7 rebounds, but 15 points, 5 for 12 from the field, 3 for 7 on 3, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. I would say that's a mediocre night for Johnny. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It's just mediocre.
Yeah, I just like to see him get some minutes because I do want to see him on the Jazz next year. And Sarah Todd had this article where he's likely not going to be on the Jazz. I didn't really understand that because to me, a guy that can shoot is still valuable, even if you want to flip him. So I'd rather, continue to have him on the Jazz. And if you want to trade him at the deadline because you think that some team will pay for him or give you something, great, right? But I'd like to see him get some more minutes because if she's true, and look, you and I are not talking to the Jazz coaching staff, so she probably has more information than we do. I hope that that's not the case, that they went through 3 guys that are not guaranteed next year, and KJ Martin was the one that said is the only one that's likely to be on the team, where Svi and Juzang are not. And honestly, I hope that's not the case because I think Juzang's earned it. I think he's a guy that can be an asset, at least an asset for in a trade.
Yeah, that's I'd be actually very surprised if he weren't on the team next year. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I honestly it would surprise me because I don't think he. I mean, I don't think the Jazz have any way to turn him into another asset at this point. If they were to trade him, it would just be as part of a package with somebody else as just filler in the trade. I don't think he brings back any assets right now. He doesn't have that value. But I think if the Jazz ran a little bit better offense from my personal perspective, I think he'd be a more valuable player than the role that he's trying to fill with this 5-out nonsense. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So getting to Isaiah, I mean, obviously, tonight was not a great night for Isaiah again. He made some really nice plays, don't get me wrong, but he did, he had a lot of turnovers. He had a few tipped balls that ended up in turnovers, and he finished with 7 turnovers against 10 assists. But he also had 5 rebounds. He went 4 for 10 from the field, 5 for 5 from the free throw line. So he scores 13 points, gets 10 assists, so he gets a double-double. But obviously, the 7 turnovers is a glaring number. That's a big number. But still, rookie point guard, put in this position, he's going to have some big turnover nights. It's inevitable, especially considering that the Jazz lineup, the way that it is, he's not playing with any of the veteran players, and it's just the way it is. But I'm happy that he actually only took 10 shots. They just didn't consume a whole bunch of possessions. That he actually still moved the ball. Mm-hmm. So I'm happier at that standpoint, rather than forcing a bunch of shots and still committing the 7 turnovers than I would be than I am with the next player we'll talk about after Isaiah.
Well, the thing with Isaiah, he was one of the ones that I mentioned, like inferred that or implied that you just continue to see the positive things with him. 1, he hit all of his free throws. 2, there was a couple of times or maybe 3 times in the game where he just blew past people. Just like, and I listened to the Philadelphia, announcers too, where it's like, whoa, this guy just like absolutely blow, including like in the first quarter. I mean, there was an amazing where he never touched the ball with his right hand and he blew past somebody and then made a layup with his left. I mean, it was almost like Jordan-esque, just like the control that he had with his left hand. So I think he showed a lot tonight, but I agree. It wasn't his best performance, but I think you still saw the flashes of something special with this guy.
Yeah. All the tools are there, and the understanding of the game is there. I mean, the speed of the game and the size of the guys is so much different than what he's had to contend with previously. I mean, it takes some adjustment. You're just not going to automatically go in and be able to play peak performance your rookie season. It's not the way it works. The guys are a lot bigger, they're a lot more athletic, and the spaces are a lot smaller because of guys' length and athleticism. So you just got to work through those things and be able to understand the spacing and all that stuff. So as you jump from level to level in basketball, I mean, there's some things that need to take some adjustment time that needs to take place, and I think he's in the process of that. So the last guy I'd really like to mention tonight is Keontae. And Keontae still, he played the second most minutes on the team, even though he's coming off the bench with 33 minutes. He took the most shots on the team with 20. He took the most free throws on the team with 10. He went 3 for 10 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 4 turnovers. So he did score 25 points. You know, he tied with Filipowski for the high scorer on the team. But overall, this was not a strong outing by Keontae. I don't want to get on the guy all the time, and it seems like I always do. But I mean, there was one specific series of plays that really irked me in the second half where he went up for the shot, he got blocked, and he came down and he pretended like he was injured or something like that. And then he didn't go back on defense because he's kind of limping around. And then the Jazz got the ball back, and then you could see him on the wing wanting the ball to shoot it again. And then he went back and he limps up the court again. And he doesn't play defense. His guy blows right by him, and I think he dunked it. And those are the type of things that it's just inexcusable. You just can't do that. You just can't do that. And Hardy knew he wasn't really injured because he didn't even he never even considered taking him out of the game. He basically just ignored that he was out there limping around because I was watching him. So those are the things that Keontae needs to overcome. You just can't do that.
Yeah, there's I'm going to say something about Keontae first, which kind of amazes me. I do think that Keontae has a unique skill in getting to the foul line. And that is a skill in the NBA. Now, do I think that that's going to continue? No. I think the scouts are going to come out and better scout him because he didn't go to the combine to get measurables. Now, we've talked about this before. Why does somebody not do that? They don't do that because one, they're not the size they are, or they don't have the athleticism, or both. And we don't know that with him if it's any of those things, but it's highly likely it's one of those things. Now, he doesn't get past people, with his offensive game off the dribble, but he still, he doesn't blow past people like Collier and Sexton do, but he still seems to get to the free throw line. So that is a real skill that he has. Now, do I think it's going to last forever? I don't, because I honestly know why people foul him. Like, I look at him like, how in the world are you guys fouling the guy on that? That was not a good move, but they do. And so that's a skill that he has right now, and give him credit for that. But it's the same thing. I mean, no one's holding him accountable. He can shoot as much as he wants. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he plays defense. It never changes, and that's concerning. And you and I talked this morning like he would lead the team in shots. Well, guess what? He led the team in shots. Yeah. It's the same thing every time, and he was second most in minutes to KJ Martin. And KJ Martin, I think, had the minutes, honestly, just because his role was really needed tonight, given our, the size, et cetera. I think we really needed him on the court. And there's other guys that could, like Juzang, et cetera, that can do what Keontae does. And that's why I think that he wasn't the most minutes. But I don't know how we change it, because you and I can't change it. Ryan Smith could change it. Ainge could change it. But it's going to Hardy and saying, look, we don't get it. We don't get it. Why in the world has he had the most shots? Why in the world does he have the most minutes? We don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his offensive possessions consumed tonight, if you look at the 20 field goal attempts, 10 free throws, and 4 turnovers, the guy's at almost 30 possessions consumed. I mean, that is just, for a guy coming off the bench, that's an amazingly high number. And he's still, for the season, he's shooting under 40% from the field. He's 39.5 last time I looked. So it's just...
Let's click on it. Click on it. See if it's updated.
Well, it was 39.5 earlier today. So I'm
just I'm curious relative to last year. Okay, that's really interesting. Look at that. So... his 3-point percentage, 33.4 last year, 34.3 this year. Field goal percentage is just basically a wash. So, his assists are better. Give him credit for that. His free throw percentage has actually gone down. But you figure that, there should be like some incremental improvement. And on the shooting, it hasn't happened. And that was like the big criticism of last year, right? So I don't know how that's going to happen. Could it happen in year 3? Of course it could, right? We don't know. I mean, players develop at different levels. So it could happen in year 3, could happen in year 4. But based upon 2 years, it's still the same inefficiency. And if you're that inefficient of a player, you shouldn't be shooting a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the summation of the Keontae issue that I think the Jazz really need to address. Okay, I have. Do you have anything else to say on the box score?
No.
Okay, I have one other thing. So there's a article on jazzsmack.com right now about the assist to field goals made ratio over time. And I was looking at this, and so you can see, if you just go back and look at the 89-90 season and see what the Jazz were here compared to league average, and the Jazz were consistently, I mean, it's not a huge change from the league average, but it is a small change. And so if you go from year to year and look at where the Jazz standpoint from, like in 89-90, they were 62.3%, meaning the assists as a percentage, assists divided by field goals made, it's just a measure of how many baskets are actually assisted. So in 89-90, the Jazz were at 62.3%. League average was 60%. So look at those two columns down as we scroll down, and the Jazz are always consistently above, and in the peak years, which were obviously 96, 97, 97, 98. Those are the 2 finals years. The Jazz were at 65%, and the league average was actually really high at 61%. But still, the Jazz were above league average. Now, as we scroll down, it's still pretty good. The Jazz really turned it around again when they had the Darren Williams and Boozer and Okur. Those teams were, again, very good. But then when we got to the Quinn Snyder years, look at how those percentages dropped into the 50s. There was one year where it was high, but all these other years, I mean, this is where Jazz basketball really bottomed out in my adult life in terms of watchability. And these numbers just absolutely tanked. Now, league average numbers actually tanked too, but the Jazz were well below league average. But under Hardy, actually, I don't like the way his offense is structured, because I don't like the way that they run the off-screen picks above the three-point line for threes and such. But at least his numbers, his numbers last year was 65% compared to a league average of 63, and obviously the league average has risen too with all the three-pointers. I think has actually led to a higher assisted field goal made percentage. But the Jazz also this year, the partial year, which I didn't put, is 65% as well. So I've always looked at these numbers because I think it's interesting how well a team passes the ball. And I think from a watchability perspective, I think it's a lot better when there are assisted baskets rather than the guys like Jordan Clarkson just dribbling, search dribbling for their own shots. That's my personal opinion. So I just wanted to end it with that. Any thoughts?
No, it's interesting statistics, and maybe Hardy's mantra of play hard and pass. Maybe actually the pass does come into play here, where that's why his assist to turnover ratio is gone up, and I think that's a good thing that Hardy's been preaching. The challenge is, if you're going to preach that, the play hard still has to be enforced, and you got to have the pass enforced as well, like with guys like Clarkson, where you say, like, look, you've got to pass the ball, or you don't play. But it's interesting. Like I agree. I think Quinn, it was a highly overrated coach, and I think Atlanta is going to find that out if they haven't found that out already. So when Quinn left, I was very happy. You were very happy, right? No. I think that those were, we thought they underperformed in what they could have done. And honestly, Cleveland is example. Like honestly, they're getting a lot more out of Don than we did. Right now, Don's improved on Cleveland, and I was ready to see Don go, but that's a legitimately good team, really good team. And I underestimated them. I think they're going to come out of the East. Honestly, they are good. They are really good, and Don's the best player on that team. So I do think that Quinn did not get the most out of his teams, and it was time for a change. Unfortunately, I think we both got a guy that's not our favorite guy, but maybe he's a young guy. If he's humble enough, he can learn from that because these stats are good for him, right? I mean, they're an improvement from what Quinn did.
Yeah, it's absolutely an improvement over what we had with Schneider. I mean, to all those people out there, I got to the point where I couldn't watch the games anymore. I mean, I just couldn't. I couldn't sit through them. I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was that bad, and I knew going into it. I'd seen the Quinn Snyder University of Missouri teams play, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, and that is exactly what happened. Just got a bunch of dribble drive crap, and I know that Locke would always say, "Well, the Jazz lead the NBA in the number of passes," but you remember that offense that he would run. They would just sit at the ball, they'd bring the ball up the court, and then they'd rotate the ball between several guys a bunch of times, and that's what gave them the passing numbers. Other than that, it was just a bunch of crap. I mean, bottom line, it was a bunch of crap. So anyway,
yeah.
I think we'll call it a night, and we'll end it with that. Anything else to input before we call it good?
No.
All right. Well, we will end it with that. And please, for all of you watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And you can also follow us on X. And we will talk to everybody later. And we hope everybody has a absolutely fantastic night. Goodbye, everybody.